Gotham City is nothing more than a giant dump. Bruce wanted to change that though, so he threw a giant party with the city's wealthiest residents, asking them to invest in Gotham's future with him and promising to rebuild it like never before. Once his presentation was over though, he ran into a mayoral candidate named Lincoln March who expressed interest in his vision for Gotham, saying they should get together for lunch sometime to go into greater detail about it. But this is where things take a turn for the worse, because Bruce noticed Jim Gordon panicking off in the distance on his cell phone, panicking because he'd just gotten a phone call concerning a brutal murder. So Bruce told Lincoln there were some important matters he needed to tend to, but assured him Alfred would set up a meeting for them. Upon his arrival to the scene of the murder, the victim was pinned to the wall with dozens of antique throwing knives lodged into his body. Apparently his name was Sam Striggs, but when Bullock ran his ID and checked his fingerprints, nothing was a match for some reason. Despite the seeming lack of evidence though, soon enough Bruce realized there was some skin underneath his fingernail. Even stranger than that, all of the knives in his body had tiny little owl symbols on them. So Bruce scraped up some of the skin to run it for testing and pocketed one of the knives, but almost immediately upon doing so, he noticed a smell leading him to a picture on the wall with a sinister message hiding underneath it. Bruce Wayne will die tomorrow. Later on, while analyzing this body even further inside of the Batcave, Bruce asked Nightwing if he recognized this man because the DNA he scooped from his fingernails was a direct match to his. That's when Nightwing realized that he did recognize this guy. He ran up to him and grabbed his arm about a week ago during one of Bruce's press events, and all he said was they're real, they're everywhere, and they're coming for all of you. But he didn't explain who these people were exactly. After that, our story takes us over to the meeting Bruce promised Lincoln March earlier, and initially it was all business, with Bruce writing Lincoln a check for his upcoming campaign. But Lincoln wasn't there for the money, expressing that all he wanted out of Bruce was a friend. You see, his parents died when he was young as well, which left him in a state of hopelessness for quite some time. Eventually though, Gotham changed his life by giving him the opportunity to go to college, so he wanted to save the city just like Bruce did. The only problem with that though was something bad had come back to Gotham, an ancient and powerful evil. But when Bruce tried asking Lincoln what he was talking about, none other than a Talon who had just killed somebody entered the room, immediately forcing Bruce into a grueling showdown and then kicking him with so much force that his body went flying through one of the tower windows and plummeting towards the street. But after Bruce was kicked out of Wayne Tower by a Talon, the Talon literally dove after him in mid-air while clawing at his flesh, trying to make sure he had no way out of this alive. But eventually he pulled himself together, punching the Talon so many times that he went crashing into a car, which also allowed Bruce to avoid certain death by grabbing onto a gargoyle. Upon getting the Talon's body though and putting them inside of an ambulance, the paramedics were met with a terrible surprise on their way to the morgue, because despite such a devastating plummet, the Talon rose up from the stretcher like the Undertaker, clawing them both to death. Now, throughout Gotham's history, the Court of Owls were believed to be an urban legend. They even had their own nursery rhyme: beware the Court of Owls that watches all the time, ruling Gotham from a shadowed perch behind the granite and lime. They watch you at your hearth, they watch you in your bed, speak not a whispered word of them, or they'll send the Talon for your head. So Bruce thought the person who attacked him was just using scare tactics. His family was rooted so deeply in Gotham's history, he was positive he would have known about them by now if they were real. Nevertheless, he wanted to know who his would-be assassin was, so he went back to the Batcave, where Alfred expressed that owls were carnivorous, masters of camouflage, and bats were their natural predators. But even more interesting than that was that later on in his life, Bruce's great-great-grandfather Alan developed a mysterious obsession with owls for some reason, claiming that they were conspiring against him and inside of his home. But everyone thought he was crazy. After that, Bruce went to visit Lincoln March in the hospital because he was also a victim of the Talon's recklessness in the tower, being struck by a knife in the stomach right before Bruce went flying out of the window. Upon asking him what he was talking about when saying that an ancient evil made its way back into the city, Lincoln indicated that he woke up to discover an owl in his apartment 2 weeks ago just perched inside of his closet above a pile of bones. At first he thought it was a weird coincidence, but with everything that happened recently, he was starting to believe that the legend of the Court of Owls was actually real. Later that night, while soaring through the sky, Bruce decided to investigate his family's buildings, because apparently they all had these inaccessible blank slots in them. His grandfather was so superstitious, he eliminated the 13th floor in every building he constructed out of belief they were a sign of bad luck and representing death. And it's here that Bruce finally accepts the truth, because inside each and every single one of these blank slots was an owl's nest. Owl's nests that were filled with weapons, family paintings, and Talon costumes. But in the last building Bruce was sorting through, he was caught with his guard down, accidentally triggering a trap that ignited a massive explosion as the Talon who tried killing him earlier observed from outside. But after Bruce accidentally accidentally triggered a massive explosion. His building immediately went up in flames, and when a giant owl symbol fell from the ceiling, he was almost killed instantaneously, but luckily he dove out of the way just in time. With the air getting harder to breathe as each second passed though, it was critical he get out of there as soon as possible. So he pulled out a laser from his utility belt, using it to cut an outline of a hole on the wall and then smashing through it just moments later so he could utilize his grappling hook to guide him to safety. After that, we find him in his Batcave yet again, trying to get to the bottom of why this Talon wanted to kill him so badly. Upon analyzing his grandfather Alan's skeleton, he realized that he didn't die in the way they said he did. His official cause of death was by drowning in Gotham sewers, but Bruce noticed 50 tiny puncture wounds, likely caused by throwing knives all over his bones. In addition to that, he found marble residue on them, which didn't make any sense because the sewer system was constructed almost entirely of granite. So he began exploring the sewers himself to see if he could obtain any answers, but unbeknownst to him though, the Talon had been watching his every move, smashing him through a wall where he would plummet into the depths of a secret maze where he was immediately confronted by a group of owls. Afraid for his life and unwilling to risk being seen, Bruce would hide in the shadows of the maze for 8 consecutive days, resulting in the Bat family and the entire city of Gotham growing concerned about his well-being. So much so that Commissioner Gordon left the bat symbol on the entire time until it literally went up in flames, with Damian begging him to get a new one. Eventually, Bruce couldn't take it anymore. He was in such rough shape and so thirsty that he eventually walked into the light to drink from a giant owl fountain. Unfortunately, this would prove to be a huge mistake and he started losing his mind. No matter how many paths and different routes he would take to try escaping, he'd end up in the same room every single time. The room with pictures all over the wall of all the people the Court of Owls had killed over the years. Later on in this maze though, a group of owls appeared off into the distance, so wanting to put this madness to an end, he made his move, rushing towards them without hesitation, but upon doing so, they seemingly vanished out of thin air. As he continued looking for an exit, his sanity spiraled out of control, causing him to hallucinate that both of his parents were down there, but eventually he realized it was all in his head when they transformed into owls tearing at his flesh. But when that came to an end, unsurprisingly, he wound up in the same room he had already been in 1,000 times. However, this time, as he shouted and screamed from the top of his lungs, the Talon made his return by jamming a knife directly through his back. Sadly, after a Talon jammed a knife through Batman's back, Batman instantly fell to his knees with blood rapidly pouring out all over the floor. As he tried crawling away, the Talon would then pick up a camera, smash it across his face, and then display his body in the air for all the owls to see. Apparently, the owls were hiding in the shadows on top of the maze the entire time, watching Bruce's every move. And when the Talon asked them what he should do with his body, they left the decision to the youngest member of their court. But all she said was to hurt him more. She wasn't really specific, so the Talon smashed him against the wall, battered him in the face and in the body, and then sent him flying through another wall with a devastating kick to the stomach. After that, the Talon genuinely believed Bruce was finished, telling the court to come down to collect his bones. Upon swarming him, they started licking his flesh and trying to take his cowl off, but eventually Bruce couldn't take it anymore and snapped. It was almost like he caught a second wind of hallucinations from the water he drank earlier, convinced that he was some sort of giant hulking bat monster that flung all the owls off of his body. Afraid of what he'd do to them, the entire court made a break for the shadows, leaving Bruce and the Talon in yet another ruthless showdown taking place in different parts all over the maze. But this time, thanks to all the adrenaline and hallucinations, Bruce would emerge victorious by striking the Talon with multiple blows to the face, smashing his body through a giant wall of marble, and then hovering over his body while promising the rest of the court they'd be meeting the exact same fate. After that, by utilizing some of the owl's leftover resources, Bruce created a mini explosion that opened up a hole in the ground leading to Gotham's river. But upon jumping inside, he was 100% certain he was as good as dead because there was glass on top of the river that was too strong for him to break, and all we see is his body sinking deeper and deeper until the story jumps back over to the maze with a group of owls contemplating what they should do with the Talon's body. Some of them wanted to revive him and give him time to heal, but the leader, aka this lady in the wheelchair, believed that that was pointless, leaving him for dead by kicking his body into Gotham's river as well, and expressing there was no need to worry because they were gonna wake up their entire army of Talons now. Batman almost froze to death in the Gotham River, but eventually he woke up in the back of a Sprinter van with a young girl named Harper Row, who, upon discovering his body, utilized jumper cables as defibrillators to shock him back to life. After that, he navigated his way through the sewers to one of the Batcave's secret entrances, where Alfred greeted him with a shotgun because he wasn't sure if Bruce was an intruder or not. But upon realizing it was really him, they made their way inside the cave together, where Bruce started freaking out and having PTSD flashbacks because the very Talon that tried taking his life earlier was propped up right there in front of him. So to calm him down, Alfred assured him that the Talon was dead, saying that he discovered his corpse in a frozen body of water and then moved him to the Batcave for further examination. Instead of getting some rest and taking time to heal, Bruce immediately went to work, removing the Talon's mask and running a wide variety of tests on him, discovering his name was William Cobb and his body contained a significant amount of something called Electrum, an alloy capable of reanimating dead tissue that seeped into his cells from a deposit embedded in his tooth. But even more mind-boggling than that was he was actually Nightwing's great-grandfather. Soon enough, Bruce implied that there was another side to the story that he wanted to keep a secret for now because he wasn't sure how Nightwing would handle it. This didn't really go over well with Nightwing though. He wanted to know the complete and unfiltered truth, so he started getting in Bruce's face and throwing a fit of rage. But when Bruce couldn't take it anymore, he dished out the truth in the most brutal way possible, cracking Nightwing in the jaw so hard that one of his teeth went flying out. One of his teeth with the exact same Electrum deposit as his grandfather's, which meant one thing and one thing only. Nightwing was supposed to be a Talon as well. And not just any Talon, but the current one, because as stated by Bruce, every decade Haly Circus presented a crop of child athletes to the court, and the members chose Grayson in secret to be trained as this era's Talon. But when his parents died and Bruce took him in, it pretty much spoiled their plans. After that, the story jumps over to the court themselves, this time with not one, but an entire army of reawakened Talons, just as promised in the issue prior. And while overseeing Gotham, one of the court members says, "Tonight we will not only kill our enemy, but we will take back our city," and then unleashing every single one of them to go wreak havoc on Gotham. After Bruce found out that Nightwing was supposed to be a Talon, he went upstairs and got dressed into some normal clothes, believing he had done enough work for the day. But while staring at a model of Gotham City with Alfred, he expressed being disappointed in himself, saying that he thought he knew Gotham so well, but with everything that happened with the Owls, it was pretty obvious he didn't know it at all. After that, Alfred tried encouraging him, indicating that this city was so much better of a place because of him and his family. But moments later, upon hearing a loud thump on the outside of the manor, they were forced to wrap up their conversation early because they knew somebody was trying to break inside. So Alfred rushed to the Batcave and Bruce tried getting a glimpse of who they were dealing with by looking out of the window, only for a Talon to smash their way inside and kick him against the stairs. So in an act of desperation, Bruce ripped off a piece of the stair post, smashed it against his head, and then kicked him in the face so brutally he went unconscious. Upon seeing 3 other pairs of glowing eyes in front of him though, he realized there was more Talons than one. And even worse than that, one of them was closing in on Alfred. So Bruce tried getting away by running to a window and swinging himself on top of the roof, but he'd quickly find out that another Talon was up there waiting for him. This left him with no other choice than to rip out the roof's wind gauge and jam it through his suit so he was pinned down and couldn't move. As the other Talons got closer though, he knew he couldn't take them by himself, so eventually he pressed a secret button that quickly opened and closed the chimney, allowing him to slide directly into the Batcave. But upon getting there, he was quickly spotted by the Talon looking for Alfred, so he put his fist up in preparation for yet another fight, only for Alfred to reveal himself by pushing over the giant Penny and crushing the Talon. Unfortunately, it was only a matter of moments before the other Talons were right on their tail, flying all throughout the cave. So Bruce and Alfred made a break for the armory and immediately locked it up upon getting inside. It's here that Bruce says that they need to drop the cave's temperature to sub-zero as fast as they can, because Electrum, the compound in the Talon's blood that kept them alive, was heat sensitive. At first, Alfred wasn't sure this was a good idea, because if Bruce went out there and tried fighting them, the temperature would be inhospitable to him as well. Nevertheless, Bruce assured him everything would be fine because there was something in the armory he knew would keep him warm, and that something was none other than the freaking Hellbat suit. But after Batman equipped his Thrasher suit to take down a group of Talons, the Talons immediately swarmed him with everything they had as the Batcave's temperature got closer and closer to sub-zero. Despite their relentless efforts though, for a brief period of time, Bruce was seemingly unstoppable, smashing one of them into the ground, electrocuting another with some sort of mini shock dart, and then slowing down a handful with frostbite batarangs. But because the cave's temperature just wouldn't drop fast enough, they were able to outlast his frenzy and eventually regain the upper hand by flooding him with various attacks and then throwing him off of one of the Batcave's upper levels. At this point, Alfred began panicking because Bruce's Bruce's vitals were so low that he couldn't fight back as the owls continued tearing through his armor. But refusing to give them the satisfaction of taking his life, Bruce recited a trigger phrase, activating the Batcave's massive T-Rex to start crushing the Talons onto the ground. Unfortunately, this sort of Hail Mary only slowed them down temporarily, and soon enough, one of them was back on top of him, jamming their knife directly into his faceplate. Certain that his son's death was just moments away, Alfred told Bruce he was coming out to help him, but Bruce refused to let him do so, securing the armory doors and locking him inside. However, as the Talons grew closer and closer to dismantling his armor, the cave finally hit sub-zero temperatures, and it was so unbearable that every single bat came flying out of its crevice, swarming the Talons left and right, and allowing Bruce to put their madness to a permanent stop. Once the Talons were finished, Alfred put their bodies in a cold storage so the Electrum couldn't reactivate them, and Bruce hit the chaotic streets of Gotham City to check on individuals who the owls were targeting. Unfortunately, by the time he got to Lincoln March, the owl's work was already finished. He wasn't dead just yet, but at the pace he was losing blood from his stab wound, there was practically no way of saving him. Before taking his last breath though, he handed Bruce a note, and what was likely the most important piece of information in this entire case, because the note contained various addresses and the names of 3 people who he suspected to be a part of the Corps after following a money trail, and one of these names was Maria Powers, who lived in the most expensive private residence in Gotham City, a residence that never saw a visitor who wasn't invited. But all that was about to change later that night, because upon walking inside, Maria found that the entire place was torn to shreds. Puzzled and panicked, she immediately tried fleeing through the elevator and calling for security, but to her misfortune, the only thing she was greeted with was the Dark Knight himself. But Batman discovered the secret identity of a Court of Owls member, and upon doing so, he pulled out her owl mask, expressing that he knew it was hers and asking where her husband Joseph was because the case for his mask was empty. To no surprise though, Maria was uncooperative, promising Bruce that him and the Bat family were far from having the upper hand, so they should just leave Gotham City. To which Bruce responded, "If I were you, I'd get used to that view," implying that she'd be in a prison cell very soon. After that, Bruce was contacted by Alfred, expressing that his scare tactics worked on her because she was currently calling her husband, which would allow them to track his phone's location. The coordinates would lead Bruce to a residence regarded as the Harbor House, and upon his arrival, he was positive that this was the end. He was finally going to put their reign of power and secrecy to a stop once and for all. But to his confusion, upon finding them inside of the attic, every single one of them had seemingly killed themselves, including the main person he was looking for, Joseph Powers. During the weeks that followed, not a moment passed where the owls weren't on Bruce's mind. Why would they just take their lives like that? And even more suspicious, all of the money from their accounts was siphoned shortly after they passed. But eventually, while staring at a picture of his parents, he made a breakthrough, because in this picture, his mother was wearing a little deformed heart pin matching the description of a pin Lincoln March described while talking about the death of his parents. When Bruce visited him in the hospital, Lincoln claimed that his mom was wearing that pin when she passed away in a tragic car accident, which didn't make any sense because why was Martha wearing the exact same one? So Bruce made his way to the morgue to look for Lincoln's body, only to discover there wasn't a body at all. So he decided to go to the Willowwood Home for Children to look for more clues, because this was where Lincoln was raised as a child. Soon enough though, while donning a new and improved Talon suit, Lincoln himself appeared from the shadows, shooting Bruce with a net gun and then asking him if he had finally put the pieces together. So Bruce exclaimed that he wasn't exactly sure what his real name was, but knew he was a member of the Owls. As soon as things began falling apart for them, he invited them to an emergency council meeting, poisoned them, and then took all their money while simultaneously faking his own death. According to Lincoln, all of this was true except for the faking his death part. He really did kill himself, but was brought back to life thanks to Electrum. But Bruce was certainly in for a surprise when it came to his true identity, because he claimed that he was actually his brother Thomas Wayne Jr., who Thomas and Martha abandoned when he was a child. And after that, Bruce finally finished cutting through the net, resulting in them jumping into one last battle for the fate of Gotham City. A Court of Owls member claimed he was Batman's brother, saying he was born prematurely due to a car accident, resulting in Thomas and Martha hiding him at the Willowwood Home for Children to heal away from the world. But eventually the hospital's funding dried up when Thomas and Martha were killed because they were the hospital's biggest donors, leaving Thomas Jr. all by himself and giving the Owls an opportunity to recruit him with the promise he'd eventually reclaim the city of Gotham from his greedy brother Bruce, who never came back for him. Refusing to believe any of this was true though, Bruce clobbered him with a flurry of punches and then elbowed him in the face. But unfortunately, Thomas wasn't fazed, grabbing onto Bruce's suit, smashing him through a wall, and then leaving his body to plummet. So in a moment of quick thinking, Bruce used a mini grappling hook to bring Thomas down with him, With his new and improved Talon suit though, Thomas wasn't worried, activating the suit's flight ability and then dragging Bruce all over the city while smashing his body into Crown Tower and one of Gotham's churches. After that, Bruce was almost incapable of resisting because his body was so weak. But even then, Thomas wasn't finished taking his revenge, bringing him all the way up to a nearby plane and then attempting to shred him to pieces by releasing him into one of its turbines. But unwilling to let that happen, Bruce clung onto the edge, then revealing he attached a mini explosive to the back of Thomas's suit. After that, things only got worse though, because upon pulling himself up to one of the plane's wings, Bruce lost his grip and started falling through the sky. But when he was close enough to one of Gotham's newest infrastructures, he switched his grappling hook to high velocity mode, allowing him to swing himself inside the building. However, it's then that Thomas revealed he was still alive, picking Bruce up by his suit and planting explosives all over the place to send him out with a bang. But before he was able to trigger the explosives, Bruce began jamming his thumbs into his eye sockets, causing Thomas to lose his grip and also allowing Bruce to escape the building before it was completely destroyed. The story then advances into the future at Wayne Manor, revealing that Bruce suffered multiple injuries from the altercation. But while talking to Nightwing, he revealed some shocking revelations. The Court of Owls were still out there, and the members that Thomas killed were just one of their groups, so his time having to deal with them was far from over. But Thomas's claims about being his brother were uncertain. It turns out that there actually was another Wayne child who his mom was pregnant with during a car accident when he was 3. The child was born premature, but records showed that it only lived for one night, so they'd never be able to know for sure if Thomas was telling the truth or not without testing his DNA. And because Bruce never found his body in the wreckage of the building he destroyed, that wasn't possible. Either way though, Bruce was thankful for the lesson the Owls taught him, but if they ever re-emerged, he'd be there watching. And that is where Court of Owls comes to an end, but if you want to see more stories like this in the future, let me know in the comments down below.